Welcome to Leader Exchange, Spring 2026. We're excited for the new year, our new series, and today we are privileged to have some local leaders. A lot of times we bring in people from outside the city, but today we have the privilege of having three of our local leaders, and it's the largest leader exchange we've ever had. So you guys are popular here in our city. We're so grateful to have you. We have Brad Wallace and Kim Carter from Luther King, and we have Taylor Hale from Muckleroy Falls. So thank y'all for being here. You guys have been a regular at Leader Exchange for, almost the entire time. So thank you for all that you've done. I want to give you just a second, kind of introduce yourself, give us a little bit of your background, what you do for work, and just kind of let our people know what you do. So Brad, you want to start us out?
Sure. Brad Wallace. I grew up in Fort Worth, grew up with a great, excellent family, two awesome parents that were entirely supportive of me.
And you got to say that because they're going to be here.
They're 100% going to be here.
That's
right. Got to mix that in for sure. My wife's going to be here too, so I got to make sure I say something good about her. But I grew up in Fort Worth, went to TCU. I actually had a desire to actually get out of town for college, but baseball is what took me to TCU. So Lance Brown and Tom Hargrove were a big influence on me getting to TCU. Enjoyed my time there. Today, I help lead our private investment efforts alongside Kim at Luther King Capital Management. Our role is to lead a group of 35 people on our team to invest in middle market companies. Our role is to take on outside capital and help businesses grow and flourish. And we have several thousand employees in our portfolio that we help manage. My path to get here was a lot different than traditional private equity. So I, started with a commercial finance company here in town, KVK Capital. Worked for Bobby McGee. He was a big influence on my life during that period of time. And after 8 years there, I went back to school, got my MBA, and then joined the firm about 21 years ago. As a CFO of a portfolio company. Okay. So I did an operating role before I moved into.
So you've done a lot of the roles.
Yeah, I have. I've had the benefit of working inside a business and then working on businesses as well. So I've enjoyed my time there for the last 21 years. Kim and I have built an incredible team. Work alongside incredible people. And personally, I got my beautiful wife here, Meredith. Yeah. She's been an amazing foundation for me. We met in high school our sophomore year. We are not high school sweethearts, though. There's a story about that because it's only partially true. She's definitely my high school sweetheart, but I am not hers. I was not hers. So it was a 7-year journey for me for her to
convince her. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this year we'll celebrate 30 years of marriage. We have 2 great kids. Got a daughter that's in Midland right now studying to be a PA. She went to University of Georgia. And a son that's a sophomore at TCU.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brad. Mm-hmm. And Kim?
I'm Kim Carter. So pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us. Also a non-traditional path. So grew up just outside of Fort Worth in a small community, Azle. Most people know it well. Super fortunate to have parents and grandparents that really instilled faith, in me and going to church and growing up with those values. But what I will say, your faith is not your own until you make it your own. Yeah. And so it's always been there, and I've always gone to church. But the journey wasn't real for me until I had moments in my life that I really deepened my relationship and continue to choose and make that decision for myself.
Yeah, so tell me what you do at Luther King.
I'm privileged. Luther has the philosophy, if you take care of the client, they'll take care of you. Yeah. And so it's just been a great honor for the last 16 years to be alongside Brad Wallace and Brian King and our full team that's really built out this effort and has allowed us to take care of and partner our capital alongside of those families who entrust us with their capital to build better businesses.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Taylor, Muckleroy Falls, you've had quite the journey, but tell us a little bit about what you do at Muckleroy Falls.
My name's Taylor Hale. Yeah. I grew up here in Fort Worth. I serve the team currently at Muckleroy Falls as president of the company. Yeah. My path to there is I grew up here, a large family. I went to Pascal High School, played on the golf team there, and we used to play tournaments out in Lubbock. maybe not impressed by the beauty out there, but just the opportunity to kind of go to school somewhere away from home.
Yeah.
I went out to Texas Tech and got a construction engineering degree from there. During my time at Texas Tech, I was able to be introduced to my wife through common friends. She actually went to OU, but we started dating late in college, and she's here, going to be in attendance today. We have 3 boys currently, 14, 11, and 9. Currently, we're done having kids.
Yeah.
But excited to have
you got
them here
plenty
too.
going on.
But professionally, when I graduated from Texas Tech, I think everybody there kind of felt the pride was working for the largest company you could go work for. And I joined the largest general contractor in Texas. And I had a great experience there, but I felt like I was confined, and opportunity to really push and grow myself wasn't there. And I had the great privilege of being introduced to really 3 terrific men back in late 2013, Harold Muckleroy, Max Falls, and Zach Muckleroy. Tremendous business, and they were at a closer time to retirement and looking for what the next steps were going to be in that. I thought I could bring the skills to help grow the business, but what inspired me the most was I saw those men of being tremendous men of faith, tremendous fathers, tremendous pillars in the community. And I thought if I could be a part of spending time with them, they were going to make me a better person. And I still think that's the culture that we embody, and still today, I believe that. I think it's God's path to helping me bring me to there. But we're a Texas-based builder. We're based on relationships. Our vision's about pushing our clients' vision forward, and I have the opportunity of serving the team in the role of president.
That's awesome. Well, I realized I said all 3 of you are local leaders, but y'all are all from here.
Right.
So, not only local leaders, but you grew up here.
We I haven't ventured outside of my circle much. Yeah.
Well, it's a great city and a great place to be. So, at Leader Exchange, we base everything we do on that Leader Exchange model, and where we talk about leading yourself well first, and then moving out from there, out to your family, to your spouse, to your workplace, to, the community, and ultimately maybe even to the world, being an influence in the world. All of that's a lot to juggle, right? It's a lot to work through. All of you have been through the core study, which we talk about this model for 10 weeks straight. Tell me how you guys have been able to do that. And if you failed at doing that, we all fail at this balance thing. And I don't know that you ever get balance, but Brad, share with us a little bit about how you kind of work that out in your life in real time.
Well, it's not easy, and I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
And your wife's going to be here today.
She is. She knows that I'm not perfect. And I will tell you, when we first got married, I asked Meredith, I said, Meredith, I want you to measure my work-life balance on a career, not a specific week.
Yeah.
Because God knows I have failed on several weeks if that's the way I get judged. But Pete Chambers was here a few months ago, and he talked about something that I'm a big believer in, and it's not about work-life balance. It's about life priorities. And I think about the core model being very similar to that. And so as an example of that, if Meredith knows that she is a priority in my life, my work away in the community or at work is okay, right? She supports that if she knows that she's a priority in my life. No different if we keep Christ at our core.
Right.
It helps everything be put in perspective in terms of how we serve our community. No, it hasn't been perfect. I've failed in a lot of ways. I will say some adjustments that I've made in my life recently are more kind of thinking about the world in terms of boulders and pebbles. Yeah. Like there's so many times that we get caught up in these little things that we're checking boxes and we're going and doing this and doing that. I honestly think that's a little bit of the devil coming into and breaking up our relationships on the things that are more important. Right. So my boulders are doing things more strategic with what we do internally, helping coach and mentor others, building a better, more faithful relationship with the Lord, and just doing things and not just sitting on boards or community involvement just to warm a seat. I want to have an impact in what I do. And so that's been a big shift for me.
Making choices, being discerning about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where you spend your time. I love what you said in terms of we're never balanced at any given time. I mean, very rarely are you completely balanced in every aspect of your life. You may have to push really hard in one area. You may have to let off the gas at work because you got something at home, and you may have to put a lot of work, at home, and then vice versa. So, Kim, how about you? How have you kind of navigated the Leader Exchange model?
Yeah.
put it into play.
Well, thank goodness his mercies are new every morning.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really the model that I live by is, starting over each day and starting with God and a
Right.
little bit of quiet time
Yeah.
before the day feels like, it may get out of control. You may have a lot of meetings, a lot of schedule, that can overcome you.
Right.
And so really starting with some scripture that I can anchor around. And so, I spend that alone time. My husband, Josh, joins me and kind of listens.
Yeah.
In on my devotional and kind of taking notes. And then I share out with my girls and Josh, whatever scripture resonates with me and what I'm feeling in that moment. And for me, that really helps. Not that I'm trying to preach to them,
Yeah.
but I'm really asking them, like, hold me accountable.
Right.
This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm anchoring around.
So it's both and. I mean, it's
Yeah.
for you, but it's also for your family.
And hopefully, and I can share and they can get something or there's some takeaway that resonates,
Right.
with them and their life, at that moment or that time. And so that's why the core model really, resonated with me when I first came to Leadership Exchange,
Yeah.
because it's not about balance,
Right.
right? It's about starting with Christ in the center.
Right.
In the same way that I feel like we get to be a steward, in the work that we do with our capital along other people's capital. I feel that same way with the core model, right? I have an amazing spouse who's supported me through good and bad,
Right.
and being away and choosing to stay home and take care of the girls so that I can travel and do and be a part of building something. Very fortunate to have resources that we can also steward for the greater good. And then amazing daughters that have supported and embraced, every step of the way. And then a career that's allowed me those same opportunities. And so I really think that God gives each of us gifts. And the more we can get comfortable in putting our trust and our relationship in Him first, then He can use those gifts for greater good.
Yeah. Seek ye first,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Taylor, how about you in terms of kind of practically putting the core model into play?
I think, that's what makes Leadership Exchange so profound is the idea of your heart and your passion and your relationship with Christ has to be first. And it's hard to balance all the other things, but if you start there, I think it gives you the direction to lead. And like as you mentioned, depending on where you are with your raising your kids or where you are in your career, those aspects, the others are going to fluctuate, but your dedication to your relationship with Christ has got to be the fundamental core of it. I would say something that I personally struggle with. I didn't grow up in an environment with faith. It wasn't a part of my upbringing at all. I've always been very kind of driven and had a vision for achievement. And I would say kind of early upon getting out of school in my career, when I was building a family too, I took on the mindset that career was everything. And this is how it's going to be. And, for my wife, that was you're secondary to that, and this is just how it's got to be for a time. And I really regret that. And I'm fortunate enough. My wife was patient enough and long enough that it didn't end. And we're still together, of course. And I think of now the opportunity is we want hungry go-getters at Muckleroy Falls. But I got to be as a leader and with Christ at the center of who I am, making sure that they are go-getting it, but also having that continued balance and not making the mistake that I was making.
Well, in the long run, it serves your company better, right? I mean, you might have somebody that's go-getter for a year or two, and then they burn out, and then they lose their family, and then they're gone from the company, or they're just mentally checked out for a while. And so overall, I think it serves the company well to help people, be balanced in how they do things and keeping, Christ at the core, of course. Brad, anything you would say, I wish I would have done that differently? We talked a little bit about it, but anything in terms of the core model, you go, man, I wish I'd have done that differently.
Two things probably. Number one is while I accepted Christ into my life at the age of 12, I can tell you I didn't fully appreciate that it wasn't about my good deeds that I did and the good things that I did that allowed me to get into God's kingdom. That gift was already given to me. And it wasn't until I've matured in my faith that I've realized that, and it's brought some peace among me, among myself, because we always struggle with, exactly what Taylor just mentioned, which is how do you balance ambition with humility, right? And so, yes, I have been ambitious and I have pursued things without the thought of the things in the world around me. And so as you mature in your faith and you mature in your career, you start to realize that that some of the things you're pursuing are not the most important. They should not be the core.
Right.
So
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Kim, anything you would do differently? You already kind of mentioned it, but
Yeah.
anything you'd do differently?
It's hard to step back and to play that hindsight 2020 and what you would do different, because I believe, each person and each experience has shaped us right now to be sitting at this table today.
Even the bad, right? Even the things you failed at.
Yeah. And it just makes us real, right? There's a lot of people that do things a lot better than I've done them. But I had that same hunger and ambition. I stayed close and went to TCU because I did want to marry my high school sweetheart that I started dating when I was 15. And so I looked at the schools and the opportunities, and I could go to TCU for free from an academic perspective. And so I chose TCU, and I was very fortunate that it was such a great experience. Even though I probably wasn't valuing it in the right way I should have been when my kids and when other people are doing, college churches. Same thing in starting my career at Lockheed Martin, right? I very much wanted to be as hungry and to learn as much as possible, and operate in what was largely a man's world, and wanted to compete. I wanted to be the best mom. I wanted to be the best, employee, and I wanted to rise.
Hard to do all of it.
Yeah. And so I was economically driven, I was competitively driven, to sit around a table and do things. To be able to compete and win. And the same thing coming into Luther King Capital Management. And then you kind of get some rocks thrown at you. Like, I had a good heart and I had good intention, but those probably became priorities for me because you think that your parents are always going to be there. You think that your spouse is always going to be there. And so while you may take things for granted, you're doing things to better the situation and for your family. But competitiveness can kind of get in the way until God says, okay, like, trying to control or trying to be a strong alpha isn't the way I see you, and isn't the best use of your skill set and talent. So I had to do some real step back and evaluation to say, you know what, God, like, I surrender. I'm going to stop trying to do this on my own. I know I should put you first and start there, and then let you work through me versus trying to do things through sheer will.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of answers the next question in terms of where have you found your identity in the past? Sounds like all of us, including myself, would say, hey, we found our identity in success. But man, that's such a short-lived,
empty.
And and man, when you're winning, it's good, at least for a little while, maybe. But when you're losing, like, man, then feel like you're on that hamster wheel again. And if you can just let go of that, it really brings a peace that actually leads to more success in the long run, right? So when is it harder for you to keep Christ at the core? Because that's what we talk about, being Christ at the core of your life. Is it hard to keep him there when things are good, or when things are bad, or when things are really hard for you guys?
I think for me, it's harder when things are going well. If I'm on a mountaintop, while it's great to have a balanced relationship with the Lord, and it's harder to do that when things are going well. If I'm in a valley, that's where I seek God. My mom recently went. Mom recently went through a cancer battle, and it was every day I was speaking to God about just helping her. And the times that she's healthy, I don't see myself having that same sort of relationship. So I do, as it relates to maturity and grace, and as I've kind of matured throughout my faith, I like to create a balance. I like to think about my relationship with the Lord as truly a relationship, and communication is important. Like when you're talking to your spouse, you don't just talk to her when times are great or times are bad. It's a communication. So I seek the balance, but I would say that I definitely seek him more when I'm in a valley.
Good. Kim, how about you? Success or failure, or is it you got it figured out?
Yeah, struggle and failure for sure.
Okay.
I think Christ is greatest in our weakness. So I feel like that's a pretty natural answer, right? When you hit a hard spot or you struggle. But the goal is, right, to have that continual conversation throughout your day, and every decision and every high and every low, to the extent that we get to that point, we're winning.
And when we're winning, can always know if we're truly winning or not,
Yeah.
right? How about you, Taylor? 3 for 3 or what?
I think it's 3 for 3 because, like you said, it's please help when times are bad, right? But when times are good, I think a lot of times you can lose context. You start thinking it's me in control. It's me that's doing all these things, and you. So I think just the discipline of consistency at all times is huge. Daily time in the Word and praying every day.
Yeah, I would make it 4 for 4 for sure. Yeah, it's just I think that's a natural tendency. So. What would you say to a young leader that's just starting out? Let's say, it's 25-year-old you or just somebody that's 22, 23, 24. They're getting out of college, they're getting started. What advice would you give them?
I think at Muckleroy Falls, we have 83 team members. We're really a pretty young company. I would say probably over 25% of our team members came from our internship program, right? So we always have 3 to 6 interns going. So we're actively recruiting for people directly out of school and come to join our team from there. And so I have lots of opportunities to visit with them about priorities and the way I think to make success professionally. Yeah. And to me, that is show up every day very curious. Yeah. Ask lots and lots and lots of questions. Ask the other team members what else you can do for them. Right. Really study to understand why you're doing these functions and how they contribute to the business. And I think when you take that very deliberate, learn every day approach, there's a person that has 2 years of experience, but they have the mind and the abilities of like a 10-year. It compounds greatly versus the ones that come in, check in, I'm going to do my job, I'm going to leave. They got 2 years and then they're a 2-year person, right? But so I think that to me is how you have that successfully pushing young, but also, again, you got to have your faith and your balance. And I think you can do all of those things with that approach.
I've got the privilege of spending some time with some of the guys at Muckleroy Falls, and man, you got some sharp young guys. Mostly the guys that I got to hang out with. You got some sharp women as well. But
absolutely,
been able to spend some time with them. How about you guys? What would you say in terms of to the younger you? What would you say?
So 3 things. Dave O'Sweeney has a great quote, which I love, and I'm not sure if I just heard him say this, which is the grass is always greener on the side that you water. Yeah. So we always see people want to pursue greener pastures. Yeah. My encouragement to young folks is like, if you want to make a difference on your side of the fence. Yeah. Water your own grass. Yeah. Second thing is Taylor hit on this compounding. Like I'm in a position now that I feel like I don't deserve to be in, honestly. Yeah. And it wasn't because I hit a grand slam here or did this deal or had this great year. It was doing like things consistently really well over a long period of time. I show up every day hitting singles and doubles. Yeah. And you wake up one day and you realize, wow, look at this platform I'm on. Yeah. Think about geology, right? Rocks don't form overnight. Yeah. It takes a while for that to happen. And then the third thing is get your house in order before you go pursue a career or community. Make sure that your foundation at home is solid. I watched my parents. My dad had an amazing career, and my mom was such amazing support for him. Yep. I've got an amazing support system at home with Meredith. Kim mentioned the same that she has with Josh. That's a massive part of success in the community in my mind. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to work with worries from home, it's hard to perform very well.
Absolutely.
Kim, how about you in terms of?
I mean, I think they summed it up really well. I would say the things that I did were come in hungry, strong work ethic, and a positive mindset and attitude. And that doesn't mean you're just seeing things, like green fields and pastures, right? It can be realistic, but you're still driving towards an optimistic, solution-oriented approach. But what I would change and what I would recommend is reflection. Right. I don't think that wisdom comes from years and experience. I think wisdom comes from years and experience and reflecting on those situations, the failures probably more so than the wins. And that's where true wisdom comes from.
Did you write that down?
So make time to reflect. Don't just put your head down, go to work, be positive, be curious. I love that. I think that's a family mantra for sure.
You probably write all these down.
Yeah.
And pass them out, right?
But reflect. Take time to reflect on your weeks and your days, and make sure your priorities, line up. Your schedule lines up with what you say your priorities are.
Well, Taylor, I know this is a hard question for you, but you faced a number of transitions in your career at Muckleroy Falls. Number one, buying out the original partners and forming a new partnership with you and Zach, a third person. Then you bought out that. Oh, so it was you and Zach. So you had that transition, and then of course the tragic loss of Zach 2 years ago this Thanksgiving, and he and his family, and just that horrible transition that you had to take Muckleroy Falls through, and it's been 2 years ago, and I'm sure it's still as fresh as yesterday. Can you just share with us a little bit how your faith, and all of that got you through all of that?
There's a lot there.
Yeah,
There's a lot to unpack. A lot of heavy emotion with that. As you mentioned, the Harold and Max, tremendous men, tremendous founding partners of the business. Started in '79. We went through them retiring in the year of 2020. But it was very well done. I give them a lot of credit.
Sure.
A lot of preparation, a lot of time, and it was a pretty orchestrated sequence of events. The company knew this was coming in 2018.
Right.
Thus, there was change when they retired, but it was very well prepared, and our team was able to.
So that was one you could plan for.
It's very, very well planned,
Yeah.
and fell into place exactly how we planned, which was really, really nice. So there was 3 of us from there that were the owners of the business, and expected it to be that way for a long time. And then shortly thereafter, only 9 months later, kind of had a misalignment with where the company was going and the vision of the business, and one of our partners departed.
Okay.
And so served in a big operational role at that time. That was a very sudden change to the team.
So
And
one planned, one
not planned, right?
Yeah.
And so it was felt by the team. We had to really step up and pick that up quickly. It took time to work through that transition. I think Zach and I found ourselves in a really great place beyond that, and really found our new normal as we headed into 2023. And if you don't totally know our story there, it's Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, really kind of a normal day. And Zach and I were scheduled to have a financial closeout meeting from about 8 to noon that day. I got a text message from him probably about 7:50 that said, "Hey, I'm gonna be a few minutes late. I've had a really tough workout, and I even threw up." And I kind of was
Wow, that's real work.
and I was, "Man, what's wrong with you? You had to throw up." He's like, "Hey," he responded and said, "I'll take you down there and put you on that bike, and I promise I'll do the same thing for you." So we kind of had a good laugh, and had a tremendous meeting from 8:30 to noon. Typical for us on a Wednesday, we say, "Hey, we let the company go home for the holidays for Thanksgiving." Zach and I said our goodbyes. I went off to a lunch with the design team. I knew that he was going to go pick up his family to head south for the holidays, and I spent some time that afternoon with my family. Me and Shelby went out with another couple. About 9 o'clock that Wednesday, I got a phone call that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And the information on the other line was, there's been a car accident, and my initial reaction was, "Okay, thank you for informing me." Fender bender. The next words that came out were Zach, Judson, and Lindsay didn't make it, and I knew right then our whole world changed.
Yeah.
That was just a moment of utter shock. We didn't know the status of Lauren at that time. I spent time going down to the Muckleroy family house for a few hours beyond that, and then I had to go to the office, and I just couldn't believe I was writing an email to the team that said this accident happened, and we're gonna honor and move forward, and to share that message with the team is just really, really hard. But I think an aspect that's really important that people might not know is I was actually baptized by you 1 month prior, and I on October 15th of that same year, and I really feel like that was God's way of winking and giving, preparing me to walk through that fire, and to be prepared to serve the team in that capacity. That following Monday might be the hardest day I've ever had. We had a stand down meeting for the whole company. And I had to go in there and say with strength that this is what's happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But, when bad things happen, great people stand up.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it together.
And you guys have done unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a lot of tears, a lot of hard times.
Sure.
But, man, it's amazing how resilient people are in adversity. And when you have no other choice but that path forward, you would all take the same path forward. And just so proud of where we are today, the team we have, and the memory and the legacy we're going to continue to carry forward.
So there's personal crisis and then there's corporate crisis. You're going through both at the same time. Personal crisis for a close friend, but then also you're leading a company that's gone through crisis, and those are both of them are extremely hard. So anything that you would say that you would do again in the midst of that kind of how you led the company specifically through that?
I think it's just being very open and vulnerable, trying to continue to be positive, but take daily action that sets the tone. That's we're going to be okay, and we're going to support each other.
You guys offered a lot of resources to the whole company.
Yeah, we did. We counseling, whatever you need. We're here for you. People handle things tragic differently in different time periods, and so making sure you're adapting to each person's individual needs with a ton of flexibility was really important. And a lot of people try to go, "Hey, how did you do this, man?" I got lots of love and appreciation of saying, "Hey, Taylor, thank you for what you're doing. You're doing great." It's a team and love, and we're pull you through.
Bring the I'm assuming it brought the company together in a way that nothing else really can in terms of the relationships and that kind of thing.
It's a club that I don't wish anybody to ever join.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I think if you the way we've been able to work through it, we're tougher, stronger, and ready to take on.
And you've had this year's been one of the best years in Muckleroy Falls history, right? So
it is, and we're expecting the same for this year.
Right. That's great. And Kim, just personal health challenges. I mean, severe, really hard, road for you. Can you share with us a little bit about that in terms of your own personal health and how you work through that as you're keeping all the balls in there?
Yeah. I think it was probably harder for the people around me
Tell us, if you don't mind, even sharing a little bit about kind of what your journey.
Yeah. I had headaches for, since I was in high school. And just, sometimes they'd get more severe, and I thought they were migraines and tried different medicines and different things, and nothing really worked. And so my solution was, when it got to that point, ice pack and go to bed.
Tough it out.
Yeah. And we'll just freeze it and make it go away, and then it got to a point to where I was like day 5 of a headache, and I was coming home from the office, and my oldest played basketball at Tulane, and so it was a very rare, maybe one of the only games my husband missed of Mackenzie's. And so he and Kylie were both at home and had the game on, and Kylie looked at me, my youngest, who was in high school at the time, and she said, "Do you still have that headache? You look terrible." And I went in the bathroom and I took my blood pressure, and then I kind of went out the back door and texted my husband, "I'm not going to the ER. They're kind of shut down. It's backed up. I just called. I'm going to go to an urgent care center, because this headache just won't go away." And I'd had kind of an episode where I'd passed out a few months before from a headache. And so my husband said, "The next time you get one of those, you're doing something about it." And I'm really fortunate to have great doctors in our community. And he said, "Do you mind if I do a CT scan?" And I said, I just want to feel better. And so he came out and he said, "Bad news, good news. What do you want?" And I said, "Obviously bad news first." And he said, "Golf ball sized tumor." And I said, "Okay, so best case, worst case scenario." He said, "Worst case, aneurysm. Best case, benign tumor that you've had for years." I said, "Okay." And so he kind of was pulling up the paperwork. Dr. Disney, who's wonderful in our community, was ready to accept me in the ER. And I said, I need a drive. I need my husband to come, get me. My daughter had moved on to babysitting that evening.
Right then. Almost emergency.
We just didn't know, right? Their CT scans didn't have the ability, with contrast to really be able to understand what the situation was. And so got in to the ER, figured out it was benign. So in my mind, best case scenario, had it for a while, and really went through the research and kind of my alpha want to control things. I'm going to find the best doctor. We're going to schedule this, after my daughter finishes her conference tournament at Dickey's, and we're just going to plan this through. And so then it was really just about the path of, okay, how do I tell my kids? Well, my my youngest was living with me, and she saw the weight that I was losing and getting sick and different things. And so she appreciated and knew it wasn't a shock. She's very much like me. Let me understand the science. Like, let me, play this through and really dig into research and understanding. And, having to tell my oldest was a different story. She kind of pushed me away and said, why would God do this? And she was very emotional and like, why are you smiling and saying this is best case scenario? And I'm like, because we have an answer and we have a solution, and this is the plan.
How long was that journey?
So
I know you're still kind of on it, but the heart of it.
I think it's just a journey that you continue with you.
Yeah.
Right. To your point,
you never get over it.
You don't wish it, but you get to have conversations. So when I'm going upstairs to say prayers with my youngest, who's very just practical and logical, and she says like, Mom, are you scared to die?
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, like, let me give you a real answer here, Kylie. Like, let me have a moment. And the answer is, like the science says, it's like 0.003% chance that the surgery doesn't go well. So like low risk. But the real part is, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm totally comfortable with where I'm going. Yeah. Now, am I a person of the flesh? Yeah. Am I selfish? And do I want to miss things in these events and, all the key events and milestones we have in our life? And oh my goodness, like what a blessing to be able to have that conversation with your kids and to really answer tough questions that never would have surfaced.
And that's real leadership, right? I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road. And sure, we can go to leadership conferences, we can talk about leadership, we can read a lot of leadership books, but man, when you're leading your family and leading your kids, when you're going through something like that, that's real leadership. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All of you actually have had a core study at your business. So, and that's a big deal. You kind of had one of your employees that put it together for you and you attended. So that was a neat deal.
We
awesome.
discipled me.
Yeah. Which was really fun. And that's still going.
It is.
And that's what, 3 years in, maybe 3.5?
At least. So we still have Thursday mornings, a group that continues to meet. And
10, 12, 14 guys?
At least. Yeah. Follow different passages and books. And it's pretty neat that they, as new people join our team, they're offered the opportunity to participate on Thursday mornings as well. And different people have stepped up and led, but it's a long-standing tradition with us.
So we started with that 10-week core study, and then you guys kind of took it from there. So, and basically the same thing at Luther King. You got the two of you kind of put it together and led that, which is a big deal. Which is not, for a lot of people, like, wow, how'd you do that? What's been the effect on your team with doing the core study?
Yeah, so I'll start. First off, I'm a big believer in forums. Small groups that you can have tight communities. Taylor and I are part of YPO, and the forum experience is a big part of that.
Right.
Faith has not entered my forum, but you got church small groups as well. Look, core group is no different. I've been part of 3 core groups now. And the beauty of it is you get to learn about people at a depth that you otherwise wouldn't. Right. There's people in our core group that I've been working with for 20 years that I learned things about them that I didn't even know about. Yeah. Right.
And they're big, life changing.
They're big in the life thing. Right. And so we all grow up in these environments, right? And we think everybody grows up the same way. And I go into a core group and I realize, man, given the family that I was with and the love that I had, man, I was born on second base with a little bit of a lead, or actually a big lead.
Right.
And you go into these things like Willie Alfonso, and man, he was barely out of the batter's box when he was born, right? Yeah. He lived in a tough, abusive family, and he's hit a home run now. He's the chaplain of the New York Yankees. And so you get to have deep conversations about everybody, about how these stories relate to you. Yeah. And so Kim and I now have probably a relationship with these 15 employees that were a part of it. You said we led. We didn't really lead. We moderated conversations. Right.
You put together the playbook, put in our laps, and we facilitated getting people in a room.
Yeah. In the room.
Right.
So,
we sent the email to invite them.
That's leadership, right?
Right.
So, Kim, how have you seen it kind of change the work environment?
Well, the email was who wants to join a faith-based leadership program.
Yeah.
We actually had people of different faiths
Yeah.
join. And so that in and of itself is real vulnerability
Sure.
and
Yeah.
trust in our team. So I think the way it changed things is you check org structure at the door.
Yeah.
Right. And you walk in and you
people.
hear these stories and everybody sits and thinks about how does this relate to me? And then at the end of the day, we're all just trying to deepen our relationship, right? We want to add value. We want to be loved. It's just human nature.
Sure.
And so it gave us a kind of 10-week forum to work through these real life scenarios in a way that we never would have appreciated or understood as much time as we spend together.
Right.
And so I think it makes people appreciate each other within the team at a deeper level than what we bring to the table professionally.
And, you talk about the videos, and predominantly your companies are fairly homogenous, but within those companies, you find, man, we got a lot of different stories even around this table.
Sure,
sure.
yeah.
We have some similarities in our backgrounds, but some radical differences in our backgrounds. And so it does help you appreciate where people are coming from. And then you have also, what I've loved about it, it seems like it gives a language, that everybody can, what you have at the core, everybody kind of understands what you're talking about there. So, well, hey, we're going to have to cut this one a little short. We'll have a little more time up top, but thank y'all for being with us. I hope this was, again, a warm up for the luncheon, but thanks for being with us at first February 2026 Leader Exchange. I hope you'll join us 1 month this spring. God bless.